It's that time of year again. The eggnog and hot cocoa is out and flowing. You just enjoyed a family dinner for Thanksgiving, and the Christmas movies are now out in full force. But there's one particular type of movie that, despite its almost overly positive and expected endings, we still love them. One of the many reasons we love these movies are the homes. They're inviting, nostalgic, cozy, and really set the scene for the holiday season. But something that we quickly realize while watching these is that our homes often don't feel the same. I've watched a bunch of movies this week to try and understand why these homes are so inviting and how we can do it in our own. These particular movies I'm talking about are called Hallmark movies. These are often movies made explicitly for television and are a very specific genre. Typically, they're stories set in a small town during a seasonal event, and someone has to fall in love, even in the weirdest ways possible. I think my personal favourites are either falling in love with your kidney donor or falling in love because of a stray cat. I think that one's more realistic. Most of the time, these movies are family friendly and tend to be predictable in the sense that there is always a happy ending. Aesthetically, the environments are always warm, softly lit interiors and quaint towns with charming homes. This particular style of movie originated from a greeting cards and seasonal ornaments producer called Hallmark. They were originally founded in 1910 in Kansas City, but in 2001 they launched the Hallmark channel and expanded into filmmaking. Hallmark realized that in many family traditions, people would sit down for the holidays or for other seasonal events to get into the spirit. And so they created this entire channel for the explicit reason of further entrenching this idea. And honestly, it was a massive success. They have made an entire genre just because of this one move. In saying this, there are plenty of movies out there that still have that Hallmark style that aren't actually produced by Hallmark. Things like The Holiday or Home Alone are somewhat similar, but usually they'll have something like comedy or drama that will kind of make it feel a little bit different to that specific Hallmark effect. But one of the most well-known producers with cult-like status is Nancy Meyers. More about her later. Ow! My toes! When it comes to the homes, there are a few key features that we should talk about. For the exterior, as an example, a lot of the time they have Americana-style homes that have a lot of symmetry and are rooted in traditionalism. And depending on the type of movie will depend on the type of home you see. Home Alone is best known for its colonial revival McAllister house. It's a style from the 1800s to the 1940s, but it's still popular today. It often has a perfect symmetry with a centered front door and evenly spaced windows with shutters to match. Oh my. It's a funny contrast to the rest of the family because they seem to be so crazy and all over the place, but the home is actually meant to symbolize stability and timelessness.
Christmas in Maple Hills, a true Hallmark movie, has a striking farmhouse with a partial wraparound. It symbolizes traditions and reliability, but also marries the old with the new, bringing something humble and respectable and contrasting it with more modern additions, inside and out. Gosh, I don't remember this tree being so big. And we can't not discuss an English cottage without talking about The Holiday. This home in particular has got to be one of the most beloved homes from this style of movie. English cottages seem as if they're from a storybook, with stone walls, leaded windows, quaint gardens, and a small but welcoming entry. Depending on the movie, you can find these styles and many more like Craftsman or Cape Cod. Each architectural style has a different nod to a different theme. Cape Cods are used in many waterfront-based movies, and farmhouse, well, you guessed it, they're for the farms.
Moving inside, some of the key features that we see within the homes are zoned and proportional spaces. Very rarely will you ever see an open concept space, and you'll certainly see that everything has been very well zoned for different reasons. Especially when you look at something like the dining room, there's usually a designated room for it, and it's much more formal than what we see today. When it comes to the colours inside of the home, it seems as if there's a lot of nature-based themed colours with a muted element to them. So think of a muted mustard or a dusty red. There's even a lot of neutrals that are definitely not white, because white would be seen as too stark, so an off-white of some kind, and plenty of wallpaper as well. There's a lot of layering with different textures and textiles, and there has to always be some level of personalization through items to further enhance who the characters are. And perhaps most importantly, lighting. Lighting is probably the most important part about fostering these nostalgic looking spaces, but it's not just the lighting in particular, it's a very specific type of lighting that creates this look. Typically in design, a designer like myself will go ahead and say for lighting you should have at least 3 different light sources that do not include overhead lighting. And to think of it in a less tactical way of being able to see everything, but to create an environment that feels cozy and inviting. But Hallmark movies take this to a whole new level. They will sometimes double or even triple that recommended amount, especially with holiday lighting. It makes it a lot easier to do so, and it just creates these amazing spaces that just feel so much more inviting than anything else. Lighting is probably one of the most important aspects of this design style because lighting is the thing that makes a space feel inviting and cozy. But it's not just lighting in itself, it's a very specific type of lighting that these movies use. As I'm sure you know, Thomas Edison was the first man to commercialize the light bulb in 1879. These bulbs were very warm and known as incandescents. We've had a few variations over the years, including halogens and fluorescents, but light-emitting diodes, also known as LEDs, have been extremely popular since the early 2000s. Unlike the first few bulbs, the light temperature of an LED is extremely cool-toned. Kelvins is how we measure light's temperature, and the higher that you go, the cooler it gets. So originally with the incandescent bulbs, they sat around 2700 to 3000 Kelvin. When halogens came in, they ranged from 2800 to 3500. But then once LEDs came through, they could range significantly. They could go from 2200 Kelvin all the way up to 6500 Kelvin plus. But many homes and globes currently sit around the daylight sort of setting, which is around 3500 to 4000 Kelvins. And this is way too cool for these nostalgic looking spaces. In Hallmark movies, it is very rare to have very cool lighting unless it's for a daylight scene. So if we want to get this look, we really need to warm up our lighting. In America, you can still get incandescent bulbs, but many places around the globe you can't get them because they've no longer manufactured them, or you're just not allowed to get them. But in saying that, all is not lost. You can still get the look with LEDs. Just make sure that it's on the lower color temperature side, somewhere between 2500 to 3500 Kelvin will work great. Earlier I teased about Nancy Meyer and her films. She has a cult-like status for the fact that she has cozy and really interesting interiors. And although not necessarily a true Hallmark movie, I think that we should really talk about it. Nancy Meyer, if you don't know who she is an American filmmaker known for her stylish, feel-good romantic comedies, often centered on adult relationships and family dynamics. So unlike the typical Hallmark movie, she focuses a lot more on mature themes. Some of her best pieces of work include The Parent Trap, Something's Gotta Give, The Holiday, and It's Complicated. While the movies are great, some of the biggest praises that she gets is for her set design because of the amount of detail she places into them. It's a blend of comfort, luxury, and lived-in realism that we often don't see done well in films. Depending on the character, we see different visuals, but she will usually use a lot of soft neutrals, varying textiles, and a lot of visual clutter. The visual clutter in particular is what defines the character. You will know just by looking at the set whether or not they are an author or a baker. You don't even have to watch the movie to get a pretty good guess as to who that character is meant to be. Meyer does a fantastic job at creating an aspirational yet familiar space that so many people want to replicate. And her design style has a lot of crossovers with the Hallmark aesthetic, from the mostly natural colours to the excess of lighting. Both Meyer and Hallmark seem to be styling with principles of Hygge in mind. Now, if you've never heard of Hygge before, it is a Danish principle that isn't solely focused on design, but it is a lot more about living with contentment, comfort, and coziness. And honestly, with everything being so hyper perfected these days and even somewhat unusable with some of the design trends, I actually think that these Hygge principles are a great reminder for us to design imperfectly and just to focus on ourselves and how we actually live in the space. And I think both Meyer and Hallmark seem to do that to at least a certain extent. They focus a lot on lighting, they focus a lot on that imperfect feeling with that styling that just feels so much more realistic than some of the stuff that we see online today. Our homes today are unfortunately a little lackluster in this department, but all is not lost. If you'd like to get this look, I've created an Amazon list down below that you can go ahead and have a look. Now, personally, I think that this look is best done through thrifting and through finding unique pieces. However, the list is there to help you get the ball rolling to understand what to look for. And if you would like to go ahead and learn a little bit more about elevating your home and taking it to that next level, make sure you check out this video next, and I'll see you guys in the next design adventure. Now I've got to finish decorating this tree.